The reason I say that is because we're 24/7. So a lot of the employees that we hire are casual employees that have availability that may be limited. So we have to create a program that not only support and give new employees that work only nights, but employees that we could bring into a centralized location to also go through the training in person.
Hello and welcome to the All Onboard Podcast, your go-to resource for all things related to employee onboarding. I'm your host, Thomas Kunjapu, founder and CEO of Cleary. Today, we are thrilled to have Deborah Maynard, the Chief Human Resources Officer at Coast Mental Health, joining us. Coast Mental Health operates a unique model with 24-hour support across 52 locations, providing housing and assistance to individuals with mental health and addiction issues. Deborah has played a crucial role in designing and implementing an onboarding program tailored to the unique needs of this very unique and diverse environment. With that said, welcome to the show, Deborah.
Thanks very much for having me.
So just to get started, could you tell us a little bit about Coast Mental Health Company and the mission and what you really do out there?
Coast Mental Health, we are located in Vancouver. We're probably the largest nonprofit in the mental health arena in Western Canada. And we provide mental health, housing, education, training, and addiction support to thousands upon thousands of clients. And we have about 850 to 1,000 staff over 3 different organizations, because we have a foundation, we have a social enterprise, and then we have the society itself, which provides the majority of the work to support our clients. We do this with compassion and courage, and the intent is to help people where they are, meet them where they are in their journey, and help them sustain what they would consider to be a life more well-lived, wherever that may be for them.
Could you tell me a little bit about the work environment for your employees at Coast? What makes that unique?
We have over 52 locations. The majority of those are either housing community sites or housing sites that house 32 to 100 people, depending on the location, that have previously felt homelessness. And this may be their first home since they had been through a period of homelessness. So our staff are literally, in most cases, working in people's homes. They may have an office, and in some cases, in some of the smaller locations where they're actually just a house that you would see in any neighborhood that may be a little bit larger, that has 10 bedrooms. They work in a little office, but they support them with their cleaning, with their day-to-day needs, helping support them purchasing groceries, and just living that life and giving them the support that they need. So very different than a lot of organizations, because they're working in their homes, the majority of them. We do have drop-in centers and clubhouses and rehab and recovery sites, but the majority of our employees work in some type of housing site. And those are 24/7. So not only just day shift Monday to Friday, but we're talking overnights and supporting through whatever their needs may be.
If you are living with your customers, that is a very different experience than what most of us have ever had. Being the Chief Human Resources Officer there, how does that translate into how you think about enabling your employees across the employee journey?
I think the biggest challenge is probably 2. One is our employees are extremely caring, and they really want to help someone in their journey, whatever that may be. But you also have to manage the boundaries of becoming friends as opposed to becoming someone that supports you. That is a challenge. Boundaries for those that aren't actually may not be professional healthcare. So we have nurses, we have social workers. Their boundary provisions under their oaths make them responsible for ensuring that they don't breach that relationship. But for the majority of our other employees, they are not regulated, but they are supporting from a mental health perspective. So hard to balance that relationship and boundaries. I think when I first came on board, I didn't understand what that meant. I went to one of our locations, and there was a client there who loved red, anything red lipstick especially. And I'm like, I have a ton of red lipstick I could just bring and give to her. And I was told, no, you can't actually do that. You must bring it in, put it in a bowl, and any client can have access to it because that would be building a professional, personal relationship. And so it was like, oh, that's a very interesting sort of difference than you might see in other businesses.
Hey, it's Thomas here. Hope you're enjoying the episode so far. Are you curious to see how your onboarding program stacks up against the industry's best? Check out Theory's latest onboarding assessment tool. It offers in-depth analysis and customized recommendations to enhance every aspect of your employee onboarding, from pre-boarding to company culture integration and more. Whether you're just setting up your onboarding program or you're a CHRO at a Fortune 100 company, this assessment can improve your onboarding know-how. Check it out at gocleary.com/onboarding-assessment. Again, that's gocleary.com/onboarding-assessment. You can also find the link in the episode notes. Now back to the show. That makes sense because you'd imagine the kinds of folks who are attracted to such a career really want to feel like they are in service of their customers. Do you see pushback similar to how you felt about the blurring of the line between the personal and the professional?
What we try to do as part of our onboarding is actually explain the nature of the boundaries and professional relationships and help employees to understand why that's important, and why maintaining that consistency is important, because you decide to give somebody an extra dinner at dinner time and another client doesn't get it. That may escalate the situation. So now the other employee is dealing with escalation of a client who may have issues that they're dealing with at that time, as opposed to if you had some consistency and you made sure that the boundaries were there, everybody would be on a level playing field. And it's a very difficult thing, I think, for people to understand because they just want to help. We make sure that we try to cover that a lot in our onboarding, and then we reinforce it throughout the year as part of our staff meetings and things.
So I want to dig into that, but let me take a step back because
Yeah.
I think I heard you say there were two main challenges associated with just generally having employees live where they work. So maybe I'll ask that question just to get those two ideas. I got the one around about balancing. How would you summarize that?
Balancing the boundaries of professional relationships and building client relationships so that they trust you and will accept guidance. So that's one of them. Now, most people don't see your clients when they've had their worst day. Because of the industry we're in, we still have a lot of people that are actively in addiction and maybe actively using. So we're providing that frontline support, and an employee may be having to go into their room and provide life-saving services. So that is the challenge because you have to get permission to enter unless there's an emergency and they've called for it or someone else has let you know about that. Balancing those factors is not easy because you're with them day in and day out. That days, good days that they've had challenges, days that you've had challenges. And the boundaries are very different than a normal, typical business that most people would work in.
Tell me about the onboarding program that you started alluding to.
Yeah. So we started recognizing that one of the things that we need to do is ensure consistency because our employees can work at multiple locations and need to have an understanding of all the businesses with a collaborative effort with our managers to get feedback using our staff through surveys and some participation. We made a design for what the onboarding program would look like and what were the important things that employees felt they needed to hear when they first started and that managers felt that they needed to provide them when they first start. You may be hiring people with less experience. We're having to help employees develop those skills and tools when they come in at a very entry level. And it becomes more imperative because of some of the issues that you may see in the workplace as opposed to if you're working retail or something. We have rooms that they can actively use that you watch them and help support them. We have individuals that may not be following doctor's orders or healthcare orders, displaying signs that the employees have to identify and acknowledge, support them with. So very different.
Absolutely. Could you tell me about the structure of the onboarding programs? I'm joining on a Monday, let's say. What does my first few weeks look like?
It's going to depend. And the reason I say that is because we're 24/7. So a lot of the employees that we hire are casual employees that have availability that may be limited. So we have to create a program that not only support and give new employees that work only nights, but employees that we could bring into a centralized location to also go through the training in person. So recognizing that we have to acknowledge the wide variety of employees and employee needs. Our structure can be either done in person. There's a large portion of it that we do because we're dispersed across multiple locations that they do as part of their onboarding at the site. They may do some training, such as ethics training. They may attend an ethics meeting so that they can understand the things ethically that impact healthcare. To some employees, these are very new concepts, plus understanding the vast difference in the businesses that we have. We have a drop-in center, we have a resource center, and those are different because in a clubhouse, you're signing up, doing activities. A resource center has things for the people that still may be homeless or near homeless. We need to give them basics so that they understand what environment they may be working in when they apply for jobs, or when they come in, they apply to one location. They don't realize that they have now the ability to go to potentially 52 other locations if they so choose.
So tell me more about that. You just mentioned that if I join as an employee, I might join in one location, but then I have the ability to work at any of the 52 locations.
Yeah, and you can apply at any time. When we hire you into a department, and a department could be 100, 200 people or 20, 30 places, you can work at any location in that department. You could work at 30 different locations as a casual and be called in to work at any of those 30 locations at any different day. So you can pick up shifts however suits your personal needs and your requirements from your home life, right? So we have a lot of students. We have people that only want to work nights because maybe their spouse is working day shifts, so they don't have to pay for childcare. We have people that just want a little bit of extra money, so they may only work weekends. It's quite a wide variety, but you can be called to work at any site, and you can pick up that site once you're an employee. Onboarding becomes extremely important.
Because you have a diverse set of employees, both in age and background, as well as night shift, day shift, and full-time, all the way down to taking in just a few hours a month. How do you think about catering an onboarding program to make sure that everyone is on some base level on the same page as they come in?
So we designed the onboarding program acknowledging that we wanted to have that certain baseline. So our managers and directors and a number of other individuals that have been with us in supervisory or frontline positions for a long period of time identified what those key areas would be that they would need. We want to give them a background of what Coast Mental Health does, talk about our mission, vision, and values so they recognize what's important, because you may not have a manager on site to ask a question. So use our values as that guiding line on how you're going to deal with the issue. Plus things like, does the collective agreements look like? Some of the key pieces that you need to be aware of for staffing and calling out, and medication programs. How do you administer medication? How do you support just this really wide variety, de-escalating clients, managing yourself. So what we call is vicarious trauma, because you're dealing with a lot of individuals that are clients that have trauma. A lot of people that come into the mental health field may have somebody close to them that has mental health or addiction issues, or may have once been someone that was there. So they're coming in to give back to the community. So giving them the skill sets to be able to deal with the trauma that they're faced with when supporting our clients. We set that standard of what things are really important for us in the beginning, and then we've set up a system that they can go in and develop themselves any further. And then, of course, you have the mandatory training, like the safety training and things that are required training.
So for any employee, it's important that they get renewed periodically on the operating procedures of the company, the mission, vision, values, and all the rest. But specifically for folks who are contributing a few hours here and there, like throughout the year, how do you ensure that they are up to speed and that minimum baseline does hold?
We have a system that we can actually send out new policies. So when somebody comes into work, they'll get a policy that might have been sent out. If they haven't worked in 6 months, they'll get a policy that they missed 6 months ago. So they have the ability to access that, and then also training. We also ensure that we invite employees to town halls So we commit to doing one in-person town hall and then 2 online town halls. And we do those for different shifts. Our leadership team will be there at 11:30 at night, presenting a town hall, same content as we would at 8 o'clock in the morning or 7 o'clock at night. And then we'll also do that on the weekend. So it's important for us to engage employees, and they're invited to that. People give us the permission to provide them to their personal emails. So if they want things, we'll send it to their personal emails, depending on how they want to engage. They'll have access to the system. Actually, they're not working, so they can go in and see anything that's out there. We have an intranet that we keep updated with all the things that are happening, pictures and photos of different activities clients have done or employees have done. We had a group of clients in one of our sites this week. It went out to the park and had a baseball game. It's a great way for people to stay connected and see what's happening in the organization.
That's wonderful. Town halls seem to be an important linchpin of how you connect the entire company, even after they're onboarded. What are other strategies you use when you have so many locations that are disparate and the day-to-day lived experience is so different, and location and sort of product and service dependent, to help people feel like they are part of one organization with one shared mission?
So I think this only came about 5 years ago. We actually brought an intranet in. We did not have that. Most employees at that time didn't have emails either. It was only the head office staff. For us, that was, most people are going, everybody has an intranet, everybody has emails. That's not necessarily true when you're working in an industry like ours. So we set that up. We set up an intranet. They'll get summaries of key things that happen in a week. We have pulse surveys. We have engagement surveys. You can ask HR questions. Any question you have, we'll respond to the questions and answer anything you might have. Because when you're working 24/7, it's like, how does that paycheck work? How does that work? I don't know what FAP support we have. We have a lot of different support. We send out communications on a regular basis around our employee assistance programs, around a CBT program that we have, and around all sorts of different supports that we have. And then, of course, if trauma occurs at a site, we have an app that they actually just push a button if they need support in their room, and somebody will come running to help support them, and it'll go automatically to emergency. So we're trying to engage all these sort of things too. And we talk about it throughout all logs that our CEO does, dates that might get sent out, staff meetings, the managers go through summaries. Just so many ways, because you can't just do it one way, because not everybody will go on Coast, which our intranet is called Coast Connect, but not everybody will go on there. So we make sure that it sends out things or do different things. We go out to sites and talk about some of the things that we have to. Not only that, we actually go out to sites, and our board actually will go to a site and do an open spaces where they hear what clients have to say and what more they could do. We have surveys that clients do, and we actually have a quarterly meeting where clients participate in a committee to provide feedback to Coast on how to become better for them. I think a lot of different things, and you can tell that for us, supporting the client and understanding where they're at and what they need is very important. And then making sure through the onboarding that we've acknowledged that, and the ongoing work that we do communicating, because, actions speak louder than words. You can say it, but if it's not lived and people don't see that you're living your mission and vision and values, then it just becomes something that's written on a piece of paper.
So that makes me think of a question. How long is the onboarding period?
It's probably more than 5 days.
By the end of the 5 days, how do you know that you're done with onboarding?
You'll have a checklist, then it'll say that you've completed all the components of the onboarding, and some of the onboarding may not necessarily be done that first week because we do it over a period of time. And then the end of a year, we actually send them surveys to see what we could have done better, what they felt now that they've worked in the job that they needed more of. So we are always continuously trying to get feedback and improve, because it can't be a great organization if you're not always looking to what's the next step, what more do we need to do, and we want to be that. It's something we continually strive for, and I hope one day that we'll be at number one, the Canada's top 100 employers. It's a journey and it's not overnight, and we'll just continue doing what we're doing.
It's wonderful to have a feedback loop and to listen to your employees over time to improve any program, including onboarding.
Yeah.
Do you have any examples that come to mind of shifts that you made in your program in response to employee feedback?
We actually went more online in response to employee feedback because what was happening before is that we expected everybody to come into the head office in person. And if somebody was working somewhere else or going to school, these are the only days you could come. You might have had to take a day off school or move things around. As a result of that feedback, they wanted to be able to access it while the same as what they would the shifts that they're going to be working at. That was one of the key things that we implemented. I think one of the other things is we implemented a little bit more information about how scheduling works and how seniority works, and a little bit more information around the collective agreement and how to manage and how that works. Because some people haven't worked in a unionized environment before that has very clear rules and they don't understand it. And we have some unique rules around how casuals can work. They're able to work any 8-day period. They can work 6 days, but they have to have 2 days off before it's considered overtime. Otherwise, it's considered overtime. The complexity of that for most people are used to a pay period, not a rolling 8 period, providing the insight they need to manage their own schedules, how that looks and what they can expect. And those are important things because at the end of the day, when's my payday?
Yeah.
And can you do this? And we talk about some of the other things that they can do because there's a lot of employee self-service that we've added in where employees can change their own bank accounts so that they don't have to worry that somebody else is seeing their bank account information. They can also go in and have a secondary account. So if they want to do savings for Christmas, they can split their paycheck up. So giving them things that they've asked for because that would make their life a lot easier. And we get this as part of surveys that we do.
That's great. I would love to pivot a little bit to learning about you, starting with, could you share with us, Deborah, what drew you personally to work at Coast Mental Health?
I have had my father, who's passed, had severe mental health issues and hadn't worked since I was in grade 11 because of the significance and the comprehensiveness of it. I have a number of other friends and family that also have had mental health issues. So when I saw this opportunity to work and be part of something that could help individuals like my dad and others who have had challenges in their life, I jumped on it. And when they called me, I'm like, yes, I'd be so excited because I truly do believe in what we do and how we support people and what that looks like. And it's just an amazing piece to be part of. I don't work directly with the clients, but I can see the impact that it has. And when you go out to sites and clients will talk to you and tell you different things and say, hey, that employee over there is really great. I really appreciate what they did. So clients, they'll come talk to you. It's great. I really do think the work that Coast does is amazing.
You've worked in a diverse set of industries and you are
Yes.
clearly drawn to Coast for the mission that it has.
Woohoo.
But the more we talk about the day-to-day lived experience of your clients, the employees there,
Woohoo.
a different pay and hour schedule, very complex staffing model. There's this whole concept of living with your customers and then drawing that fine line between policy and creating personal relationships. A lot of things that make it more difficult to be an employee and in your role to enable employees. What have you seen from your perspective as a chief human resources officer in enabling employees at Coast versus any other role that you've ever had?
It's interesting because I've worked at public sector, private sector, manufacturing, healthcare, a lot of different variety of different pieces. But I don't know that there's so much of a difference in the fact that it's about tying what we do and the work we do into the mission. Because even at my last place, I worked at an aerospace organization that did a lot of work for the military and a lot of work on the C-130 Hercules. And our mission was to fix them, but those Hercules themselves actually went into theaters of war and were used to help support people evacuating or getting food stuffs into areas that were hard hit by earthquakes. We connected our employees to the mission of what our client, the military, was doing. And here, it's much easier, I think, especially these days, to connect people into the mission of supporting mental health and what mental health is and how the right supports can make a significant difference in people's lives. Not only that, Coast was challenged by the fentanyl crisis. BC has been in a state of emergency for the fentanyl crisis with toxic drug supply for many years. And our employees face that every day. They see the full spectrum of recovery, helping people through recovery.
If you're comparing the experience of an engineer who's working in the aerospace company that you were with versus a community mental health care worker and their needs as you're onboarding them, clearly the mission is something that is common and you really think about including in the onboarding program. But then how do you think about catering and differentiating onboarding for different types of employees who have different needs?
For engineers, they need to have the comfort of having their own desk and their own place where they can put things. And I'm generalizing a little bit. If anybody's an engineer out there, don't come say, no, I don't do that. But generally, they like to have things set up a certain way. They like to have their own piece. Whereas employees share computers, share office space, come in and somebody may have been sitting there for the 8 hours before. So nothing's where you may have left it. So you have to really think about what is the needs of the person that you're bringing in, and from an onboarding perspective, what's going to be important. Because for an engineer, many things are different, are important. Different things are important, but I think the basics are still the same. Making sure that you connect, making sure that you understand what the organization is looking for and what you can gain from the organization. We all go to work to earn money, to make a living, to do what we want after work. People, no matter what job they have, need to know the basics of what those pieces are when they come in. So it's just some of the training is a little bit different. You want an engineer to be ethical because you don't want them to hide a piece of airplane that's not fitting right. So it's really need to think about what that person needs to feel comfortable and be successful in their job. And I think it's putting yourself in their situation and then getting their feedback, because there's lots of things. Still having time to have fun. Mental health workers may joke around a little bit more because they're not sitting at a computer all day. Whereas engineers, we found that we needed to have more organized team building activities, where like you might build a plane out of cans and donate it to a charity. Most of the employees are working for a charity. So it's just a different scenario, but you still want to connect with what's important to the individual.
Hey, it's Thomas here. Now, you and I might think it's obvious that people are your biggest resource, and investing in your onboarding program to make it world-class is a bet you want to make. But how do you talk about this with your CEO or CFO so that you can get them on board with investing in an updated onboarding program? They're always looking for something that can save money and boost productivity at the same time. Well, I've got something exciting for you. Check out Cleary's Onboarding ROI Calculator. It's easy to use. Just enter some info about your current onboarding process and your company and see how much time and money you could be saving with a modern onboarding solution. Head on over to gocleary.com/onboarding-ROI to give it a try. See what you learn and let us know what you think. Again, that's gocleary.com/onboarding-ROI. You can also find a link in the episode notes. Now, back to the show. 2 more quick questions. I'm super curious. There are 52 locations. However, a lot of your programming is now increasingly virtual, even for people who are obviously reporting into a location every day. And this may go beyond onboarding. So how do you think about when to provide virtual programming versus on-site programming for onboarding and other programs beyond that?
So for employees, it could be either. And we try to look at what we've done and the connections and where the timing might be. For our clients, the majority of it is not virtual. It's all in person. For employees, we look and say, okay, we just did a in-person town hall. We think this training, we can run it virtually. But we try to do that balance, and the managers are the ones that provide the input. Like we'll say, we'll give a schedule, like a schedule of safety training that has to be done and what's mandatory. And so then we get the feedback from the managers, and some of them ask their staff and get the input, and others just say, for us at this time, it's going to be better if it's all virtual, or you guys come out to this location and do it all at once so we can just get it done? And I have to be a bit of a cafeteria that way. My team is very flexible. I'm honestly very honored to be able to have the team working with me because they'll go to the site. They'll go there at 11 o'clock at night. They'll go there at 7 o'clock in the morning. They'll go there if necessary, or they'll do virtual training. We've rolled out some fairly large projects over the last couple of years, and people were there at 11 o'clock at night training people how to use our new payroll system. Sometimes you just got to get it done, and it is virtual because we're on a tight timeline. But usually we have a little bit more opportunity. And then probably we think about things like de-escalation skills or how to manage violence in the workplace. We recognize that being together and hearing stories is key. So we tend to do those in person, even if it's like an hour here, an hour there. But we do other things from that perspective.
So one last question I had for you.
Yes.
So curious, if you reflect back on your diverse industry experience, what do you think is uniquely being demanded of you and the people team that you're leading, being in Coast and being part of a mental health organization?
I think that recognizing, and this may not be unique to Coast, but it is more unique, that employees have agency and choice and want that from HR and the way that they do things. I think being able to provide them the supports they need in various different ways that are going to work for them and allowing them to participate in the process. We have a lot of people that have been to school for social work or nursing and things. Some people are extremely well educated and really want to ensure that as an employee that they have that ability to make those choices.
Got it. Okay, this has been awesome. Are you ready? Without any further ado, are you ready to go into the lightning round, Deborah?
Yes.
We're going to do 30 seconds or less and learn more about you.
Okay.
All right, let's do it. Beaches or mountains?
Beaches. Definitely.
Okay,
Hawaii is my favorite place.
nice. Morning person or are you more of a night owl?
Is there somewhere in between? I don't like too early and I don't like too late. I'm like the person that gets up at a reasonable time and goes to bed at a reasonable time, unless I've got a good book.
Sounds reasonable. If you weren't working in HR, what might you be doing instead?
You want the real answer or the one that I always say? I started off in pre-med, so that's the real answer. But I always thought it'd be fun to be an international spy and be like James Bond. If I could do, that's what I would do.
What's the best piece of advice you've received that stuck with you?
To ask yourself when you're in a situation, is this going to matter in 10 years or a year from now?
Great thought. Here's a question. If you could wave a magic wand and drastically improve one thing about how the industry in general approaches onboarding, what would it be?
If I could move a magic wand, I would have more time to engage personally with individuals because I'd love to know more about the staff when they come on board and really gain those personal relationships.
Got it. What do you enjoy most about working at your current role?
It's always the answer is the people, my team. I like the diversity of work. It's just, there's so many different unique things about working in a nonprofit, so many different demands. We've got 3 collective agreements. Some are very complex, 54 locations and 24/7. There's so many different things you have to consider. There's just so many things. So I love the organization.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for the time, Deborah. That's a wrap for today's episode of All On Board. For everyone out there, I hope you found our conversation here insightful and inspiring. Now, don't forget to subscribe to our podcast to stay updated with the latest tips and trends in employee onboarding. Stay tuned for Thomas's Take, where I'll share my thoughts and reactions to the amazing advice that Deborah has shared with us here today. Until next time, best of luck to everybody with your onboarding processes. And remember, it's all about making every single new hire feel welcome. Hey there, it's Thomas here, and I'm back with a take or two on this conversation we just had with Deborah Maynard. Now, couple of takeaways. First of all, you think what you have to do is hard? You think onboarding employees into your environment is difficult? Let's just pause and think about what it might be to onboard employees who have to work around the clock, 24/7, and be in a work environment where your customers live. On top of that, you are working with folks who have a diverse set of needs all across the physical, the social, the mental. And think about how difficult it is for folks to work in this environment and what it might mean to actually get someone new into the organization working and productive and understanding what it would mean like to do great work in such an environment. I think many of us who work in many other industries have something that is much easier to do compared to all this. So let's make sure that they all have great experiences as employees. Now, a second takeaway is this concept of mission focus. We've talked about how whether you are in aerospace and building technology for the military, all the way to working as a social worker in an organization that is a nonprofit focused on providing housing for folks who are in vulnerable communities. Every organization can and should be mission focused. My take is that this is sort of a blanket statement and you can literally do anything with it, meaning you can enable any kind of mission, whatever it is. And the point is that you just have something defined that is important to the executive and leadership team. And it can be literally anything, but it should be something that binds everyone together. And you know that it fits the bill if you're constantly able to mine stories from within your organization, either about the way you work and work with each other internally, or with the work that you enable with your customers, or the outcomes that you have for your customers. And you tell those stories, and it actually makes the leadership team swell with pride. Having that mission be central to what is communicated to new employees in the onboarding program, that's a strong piece of that Kool-Aid mix that you're bringing out there, to put it cynically. But from a positive standpoint, that is actually the kind of talent that you want to recruit, people who are attracted to this particular mission. And when you have those missionaries versus mercenaries, the organization is going to go a long way. One last point I wanted to discuss was this concept of collaborative program design. If you're developing any program, including an onboarding program that is for employees, it needs to be done by involving managers and frontline employees, frontline staff into the process. An HR team is really just guiding the outcomes, but really needs to be listening with both ears to what the employee base is saying. The best way is to have some qualitative interviews and conversations where you always have your ear to the ground, where you can mix that in with quantitative survey information, but bringing in that manager and frontline staff perspective is such a baseline exercise that is ultimately skipped by many teams out there, but has such a strong return on investment. If you don't do that, what you might have are programs that get sidelined completely, don't actually get taken up by the employee base because they frankly don't need it. And they're busy and they've got things to do. So that's all I had for today. Again, this is Thomas with my take. Till next time.